It's Enlightenment Garden, late winter 2018, beginning of March here in the Phoenix, Arizona area, and just going to give you a quick update of some of the plants in the yard, show you what things look like in the winter. We've had a couple cold snaps, very odd weather this year. We went up to 85 in January and then, down below 32 in my yard. So the plants, some of them got some damage because here they are trying to push new growth and blooms with the warm weather and then only to get frozen back. But one plant that didn't mind that is citrus. This is my Eureka lemon. You can see the fruit still hanging. Quite a few lemons. Eureka lemons do really well here. They seem to be pretty hardy. Don't suffer from minor frosts. Barbados Cherry. This frankincense tree, while they do get damaged early on when they're young, you can see how large this tree is now, how bushy. These don't suffer any dieback at this age. This one is 5 years in the ground. You can see how massive the trunk and branch system is on this now. Navel orange, similar to the Eureka lemon. Still have quite a bit of fruit on, and it's setting a lot of blooms right now and new leaves. You can see some of the figs haven't woken up. This is a Chicago Hardy. Still dormant. The Anna and Dorset apples are in bloom now. They didn't quite fully defoliate, but it didn't affect their ability to bloom. This looks pretty covered with blooms. Here's one fig that has broken bud and started to leaf out. This is the Desert King. You can see the pomegranate has woken up too. This is a wonderful cultivar, and I did quite a bit of pruning on this one to open up the canopy. This is a 4-year-old plant. The other thing I wanted to do was diversify my fruit variety. So for the first time, I tried what's referred to as a rind bark graft. You can see I have these tiny scions. This cultivar is called Purple Heart. It's a fairly rare type of pomegranate. So I bought a small plant at One Green World, which is an online place. You can see how tiny the scions are compared to the rootstock branch. So what you do is make a very thin cut into the bark and slide the scions into that. And just to cover your bases, in case one graft doesn't set, you can do 2 on either side. Plus 2, I heard, encourages the branch to put energy in so that part of the branch doesn't die. So if you have nothing on the other side, it doesn't have anything to really stimulate its growth or trigger its growth. And then over here I have a Parafianca, which is considered by many to be one of the best pomegranates. Very sweet, soft seeds. You can see that graft on the bottom there has definitely pushed a lot of growth, and even this second one, it was a little later to do it, but it's pushing growth on both sides. So that was pretty cool to see that grafting technique took. So I might get 3 types of pomegranates this year. And it is already starting to set its bloom, as you can see there. Here's the tropical pink guava. It actually put on quite some growth since fall. And it didn't set a whole lot of fruit on its second crop, but you can see there's one guava there. Its second crop that you harvest in spring is not as great of volume as its main crop in summertime, but it's another way to get some more fruit. I'm going out into the orchard here, I'll point out some of the grafts that I did. So this is the Excel fig. It's been pruned back. And I have some grafts on here, so this one right here is a Toro. It's supposed to set 300-gram figs. It's one that I got from Harvey at Figaholics with his annual sale. There's another one. You can see that the buds are swollen. Black Madeira down there. The Panache Tiger that I did the pruning video on, you can see has already woken up, pushing those top buds. New branches will form. Fuji apple. Still some leaves on that. This is a cross between a plum and an apricot. This is an aprium. Hasn't woken up yet. The 20th century pear has not woken up. And I did do some grafts on it. So that's a Hisui there. And down here, this is a Shinseki. Pluot was not woken up. This is a Moro blood orange that I just planted last month. And you can see it really liked the compost that I planted it with. And it's pushing a lot of growth. Raspberry latte. You can see it. Its Maltese Falcon graft started pushing bud there, and it got a little frozen back, but should be okay. Buds are swelling on the Violet de Bordeaux. Here's a Bass's favorite fig that's broken bud. The Florida Glow peach, again this year, first plant to break bud and start pushing. And you can see it's covered in peaches. And I didn't bother to thin this myself last year, and it didn't cause a problem. I find fruit trees self-thin just fine. They don't need our intervention. It's the Bailey's Marvel Mango. You can see it's starting to form its panicles. This Black Star Suriname is flowering right now. Lots of buds on each of the branches. One really exciting thing is I found that the champagne loquat is actually self-fertile and has set quite a bit of fruit for me. So I will be able to do a tasting video when these ripen up. But I'm happy to report that this cultivar is self-fertile, so you don't need to graft. I decided I got actually another type of loquat. This Christmas loquat, Scion, I decided to graft on anyways, even though I saw that this was self-fertile. I think it's kind of cool to have a 3-in-1 loquat, so that's a veneer graft I tried. And I find that the veneer graft is actually one of the most highly successful type of grafts to use with loquat, because loquat branches are quite soft. So if you try to use that omega tool, grafting tool, you end up crushing the scion and it tends to dry out. It's just not stiff enough branches to hold well. That tool is great for most other plants, but not loquat. And even with this Macbeth graft that I did last year, you can see the cleft graft has healed on it. So if you're going to do grafting on a loquat, I recommend either a cleft or a veneer graft. Saddle grafts don't tend to work on this tree. So this is another new plant that I put in. This is a Szechuan tree. They're said to do better when you have 2 plants, but are self-fertile just with the one. So that'll be interesting. This is the pepper that they use in Asian Szechuan style food. This is a Genoa Fig that I had picked up from Walmart, and I was really just, the intent was to change it out by grafting on new varieties to each branch. Still need to do one on this branch. Actually had a Golden Riverside on there, but it seemed to be affected by the cold snap and didn't make it, so I need to put something new on there. The other 2 are Strawberry Vert and Bordesat Blanca Negra. Those both seem to have taken. I can see the buds pushing. Some more fig grafts. This is a Vasilica Sica on my white Ischia. I got another one down here. So both of those took off just fine. This is my new Black Madeira that I got from Just Fruit and Exotics. You can see that it's about to break bud here. The Jabotacaba did just fine in the cold. And it's pushed out new growth, you can see. The new foliage. This is kind of interesting. So this plant here I got from Top Tropicals. It's a raw sapote, so it's a yellow sapote, canistel, egg fruit, you may know that by that name. This cultivar is supposed to be a superior type of canistel, and I had another type of yellow sapote that I got from Seamus in it. It died, it just didn't handle the heat or the cold. This one I left out. I never took it inside this year, and I didn't really protect it either in the summer, and it's done fine. It's a very small plant. You can see how thin that stick is. It's thinner than the bamboo stake next to it. But just an interesting one that proves to be a more tolerant plant in our climate. The sugar apple I also did not bring in this year, so it experienced temperatures down to 32. And it's still very much alive, it just is still dormant. I did have to lightly prune it for some of the smaller branch tips that suffered some damage, but it's interesting that it took it, because these are not supposed to handle freezing temps. So you may be able to get away with planting this in the ground in the right protected microclimate. The mountain soursop, you can see how much this thing has grown. It's well above the wall height of 6 feet. And this was a plant that I got from a mail order place in Hawaii as a very small little sapling. So you can see, you know, in the 2 years that I've had this planted, it's attained a fairly good sized trunk and a lot of growth. And even with our cold temperatures, you know, it's pushing out new leaves. Can handle low 30s just fine. This bear's lime has really blown up in growth. I had noticed this was a dual trunk and the other trunk was actually rootstock. So I chopped maybe half this tree off last summer, and I also cleared the canopy. These ficus trees were kind of merging in just to give it more sun, and it's really grown a lot. It's doubled in size since I did that. You can see it's full of blooms. All of these plants got fed in February, so they're all in growth mode. This is a new plant that I put in. I had a seedling fig here before. So this is a Nagami Kumquat. And I got this from a local nursery in the Phoenix area. So this fruit's very sweet and sour. I have not actually tasted one yet, but the skin is actually the sweet part, and the fruit inside is sour. So you get that contrasting flavor profile on those. Here's the seedling Suriname cherry. You can see it's pushing new growth. And I don't see any flowers on this, but with seedling varieties, you know, it's common that you have to wait several years longer than a grafted variety, like my Black Star and Lolita. So this has only been in the ground for 2 years. It's probably a 3-year-old plant, so maybe year 5 I might start seeing fruit on this. The honeymoon variegated guava gave me my first guava this year. It was quite good. A little bit more seed crunch than the Lowe's varieties like the Pink Beaumont, but really good fruit. And it's a vigorous grower, just like with most guavas. This plant was very small at planting, so it's about tripled in size in a year. This Barbie pink guava was about 3 inches tall when I planted it. It was a seedling from Wellspring, so you can see it's really done well. And I put this here instead of the white sapote I had a Vernon. This is the white Cuban guava. I've already had quite a few guavas off this tree this year. You can see its second crop. There's more in here. So this particular tree seems to produce more guavas in the colder period than in the warmer. The other guavas have grown quite a bit since fall. Curry leaf. It's the cherry of the Rio Grande. This is its favorite time of the year. It does not like our summers. It's nice and lush right now, and it has no issues at all in the cold. So this Black Mission fig I definitely pruned back severely, because I had heard that this was a main crop only fig, but that's actually incorrect, because look at that. That right there is a fig. and this just broke bud. So, at least in our climate, Black Mission produces figs all year round, and that may actually be true with all fig varieties. I don't know that we have that whole Breba main crop thing that, you know, colder states deal with. So I have a lot of grafts on here. This one is a Figo Preto. You can see that it's breaking bud. It's another Figo Preto here. And I have an Italian 258 right here. This one is another Toro. See, it's swelling node. See over here, this is a Black Greek Unknown. Got a couple of those. So if all these take, I have quite a few varieties on that tree. I'm trying to diversify all of my fig plantings because I really don't want to plant any more in the ground. I have about 40 in-ground figs. If I can get one or two varieties on there, you can see I can have a lot of diversity without taking up too much space. So this is the Violet de Bordeaux. I did a cleft graft because these scions that I purchased were so thick I couldn't really do any other kind of graft style. And you can see this is a Cul de Dent Blanc. See, and up here, this is a white Adriatic. See, Triano. Some of these figs, like I was mentioning, still inactive. That's a LSU Scots Yellow. This Green Greek never went to sleep, which is interesting. It never lost its leaves. It's one of the toughest figs. Could deal with really high temperatures without burning, and also never went dormant. Just want to show this Meyer lemon. Just insane. I don't know if you can see all those flowers. It's just encrusted. Can you hear all the bees? I've never seen so much bloom set on this tree. It's the Sunrise Mango. You can see the panicles. It's bloomed. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen on this one. This bloomed before we had our cold snaps, and some of the flowers burned up from the cold, but hopefully the flowers that remain are still viable and we'll be able to produce fruit. It's just a look down the path. As you can see, the bamboo has grown up. The cannas actually were really lush for most of the winter until we had the last cold snap. So I just cut those down to the ground, and you can see their new stalks are coming up. Just show this one. So this is the LSU Purple. You can see this one is definitely woken up. It's pushing new growth. Smyrna Quince. I had read that you can actually graft loquats onto a quince, so this is just an experiment to see if that's true. So I grafted that scion on recently, and that's from a Christmas loquat, so we'll see what happens there. And then I also grafted on another variety of quince. Erminataya. Texas Everbearing hasn't spurted too much growth, but it's woken up. And I have a couple grafts on there. Just the longan. You can see that it's starting to push new leaves. LSU Scots Black has woken up. Black Sapote. I had my first Black Sapote. Only one fruit made it to maturity. It takes 10 months for the fruit to mature. It sets its fruit around May, and then you harvest around March. And it was interesting. The texture was definitely chocolate pudding. I found it to be a nice tasting fruit. I definitely would keep it in the yard and continue to grow it. It doesn't taste like chocolate so much. It's more the appearance and the texture. But it does have some sweet, subtle fruit notes to it. And this is one of the few tropicals that actually had some damage from the latest cold snap. You can see that the branches there are defoliated. The leaves turned crispy and black, and I had to prune off the dead tips there. Whereas this white sapote, which is unrelated actually, suffered no issues. In fact, it loves the cold time. You can see the new growth coming in, and the bees are all over this, pollinating. Have quite a few clusters of flowers on this. And the fruit's really good actually. It's an easy tropical to grow here, and it has a citrus marmalade or marmalade type taste to it. Here's some fruit that actually set. You can see there. Similar to all the other citrus, this key lime is just full of blooms. This is the white Genoa Fig, and you can see that the old growth defoliated and, went dormant. But what I thought was interesting about this particular fig cultivar is this started pushing growth when temperatures dropped. When all the other figs were going dormant, it pushed new growth down here, and I actually got, and am still getting, ripe figs. So if you're looking for fig fruit all year round, this is not a bad one to grow to get that in between crop set when it's cold here. Here's the moringa. You can see I severely chopped it back. I do that every winter, and that's so that I keep this thing bushy and full of leaves, because that's my favorite part of the tree to harvest, are the leaves. You also get a lot of pods this way, but you can see that it's starting to sprout off of every junction where I cut a branch off. So this thing will be dense with growth in a few months once it gets hot. One tree that definitely woke up my other mulberries, they're still asleep. This is the dwarf Isai variety, everbearing. You can see it's full of fruit. It's starting to ripen, some of them. I severely chopped this one back. The mulberries grow off of new branches, so it's a good one to heavily prune each winter for fruit. This is a really productive variety. Even though it's a dwarf, it can reach 15 feet, so you really need to keep it in check by heading it back every so often throughout the year. And that'll stimulate more fruit set too. This Barbados Cherry I did not prune back. It's a bush. It's a large bush. And I just wanted to continue to produce as much fruit as possible so you can see by not pruning, I still have a very dense tree. That'll fruit well for me. The Buddha belly bamboo, it's definitely grown since planting. And I did plant a bunch new plumeria back here that were in pots. This bamboo will help protect it. Take a walk back here. I missed a few plants. You can see the Royal Poinciana grew a lot since planting. It managed the cold snaps that we had. It did not die back, but it certainly defoliated. As you can see, there's a few branches like this one. Probably just falls off. So it'll start shooting new growth once we warm up. So the golden-kissed apricot has woken up. My Katie's still asleep, but this guy woke up early, just like last year. It's a slightly earlier variety then. Cold snap damage definitely affected this Tainung papaya. I had to cut most of those branches off. They are severely burnt. Bananas survived, but definitely had some damage to their leaves. Cut the damaged parts off. Interestingly enough, the solo papaya that was actually fruited for me here had no damage. And they're right next to each other. Some more fruit coming on. This is a newly planted one. This is a Red Lady papaya, dwarf variety. So here's that Persian mulberry. You can see it's still fast asleep. Well, I take that back. I can see the start of some bud break right there. And I did graft onto this one. So these two are Oscar varieties. And these two are lavender. And it looks like there's some swelling of the buds on both of those. The all-in-one almond is in bloom. See that? So this tree only sets fruit on old wood. So my pruning style was to keep as much wood as I could, but still open it up, so still achieving that vase-like structure. This black Askia was the first to go to sleep and the first to wake up. You can see this Petit Negre. I was not fond of this fig, so I really grafted a lot onto it and cut it back. It has a nice structure for me because it's got those low branches to the ground that arc upward. So over here I've got an Olivet Gris, a couple Smiths down at the bottom. This one is a Kathleen's Black, and this one is a, let's see, Bourgeois Noir. Another new tree that I planted is this variegated Eureka Lemon. Got this locally. In a 15-gallon size, so it's pretty large, and I heard that these are sensitive. That's why I wanted something with a little bit more of a root system to start with, so that it doesn't suffer too much in our summer can take it. See the Royal Poinciana, this large specimen I planted 2 years ago. Managed the cold better, kept more of its branches, and kept growing. It's quite large now. And the other precocious fruit tree that I have is this Hollywood plum. So it's full of blooms right now. And I did some grafting on this as well. So this is a Satsuma plum, and I can see bud break on that one. And over here, this one is Methley. I got 2 of those. And then at the very bottom here, I have green gage, and I did a rind bark graft on the bottom. So I had a fairly small scion there. And just one more tree to show you. This is the Seijo persimmon, Japanese persimmon. I did a couple grafts on this one. It's just starting to wake up. We go over here, you can see it's starting to push some buds. Up here. So over there is a Fuyu persimmon, 2 that I grafted on. And then these 2 are Izu. So I'll definitely do graft updates in a month or 2 once everything's woken up. But I just wanted to show you what things look like. End of winter, this is probably the ugliest time of the year since a lot of trees are defoliated, but some are in bloom already as we approach spring. So hope you enjoyed the tour. As always, thanks for watching. If you have comments, post them below.